that bad.
Sure, once a month with them.
I like having them.
I know, it is
I
nice.
know. We can just do it.
Is that covered? You do a preference on laptops, no laptops, notes?
Once it's on the table, oh no, that's.
I don't care. I mean, if people want to, we have notes for this pre-made, so we'll give you notes if that helps. Good to go? All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out for the next 90 minutes. This is actually a little session I do with every single Techstars class. I'm David Cohen. I think I've met most of you here in the room. We have a bunch of people watching on video today. Techstars so far, we're about 10 years old. There's been around 120 classes of companies, 130 or so now as we make this. And about $5.5 billion has been raised by Techstars companies. So about $1.5 billion a year now is the clip of money raised. And so over those 10 years, we've learned a lot about what works and what doesn't. And my goal today is to give you actual tactics, right, that are sort of a little bit in the family of how you all can effectively raise money. First thing I want to do is tell you that today is going to be a role play. You have the ability to ask questions, use the mic if you're here. We're going to get some questions from other programs that are going on right now as well. And so it's going to be interactive. And it can be a little bit scary for the people that are up here sometimes, but it's really just a lot of fun. And it's really educational to see it. So the first thing I want to cover before we jump right into that is what I call the two big killers in fundraising. I think it's really key to think about what kills most fundraising activity. Thing number one is a thing we're going to work on hard today. The big killer is poor communication. This is actually a big killer of all business deals. People who are not effective at communicating, who don't know how to sort of have the conversations that are sometimes awkward and hard, really struggle with fundraising. Thing two, the big killer, number two, is the over-ask. Companies that ask for too much money, the market doesn't have that much money for them, and then they end up raising nothing. Super counterintuitive. You would think if I asked for 5 million and there's 2 million out there for me that I would close 2 million, no big deal. Wrong. You'll close nothing. So people ask for a lot of money, the market's not there, and they think no big deal, I'll raise less. Most cases, you end up raising nothing, or if you raise something, it's on very bad terms because you lose momentum and you didn't do what you said you were going to do. So big killers, poor communication, subset of that, lying. People don't intend to lie, but they are perceived as liars a lot in my experience, and we'll maybe see a little bit of that today. And then, don't over ask. We have a lot of data around a lot of rounds over 10 years. The most common thing is people ask for less and they raise more. That happens most of the time because I have this talk in every class and I tell them, don't over ask. The market in general, people are out there asking for too much money. The market pushes them down. That's a bad dynamic. Ask for less, let the market tell you it has more. That's a good dynamic, and we'll talk about how to manage that today. Okay? I want to jump right into role play because that's where all the learning is. I think we maybe picked a couple volunteers in the room. Who's going first? Yes, sir. Come on up. Marcel, yes? Marcel, good to see you.
Good to see you.
I like the hoodie.
Thank you. Can I put it on?
Marcel, here's the deal. I want to do a role play with you, and I'm going to be rude once in a while.
Cool.
And I do this thing I go like this. And I do it because I really want you to stop. So I apologize that's going to be a little rude, but as soon as I do that, please just don't say anything else.
Got it.
Right? Because I want to use that as a teachable moment for everybody watching. I'm going to set up a role play. Let's assume that I know your company. I've maybe mentored a few times and we've had some interactions. You know I'm an investor. So I'll be an investor in this role play. And you could be an entrepreneur.
Great.
So far, pretty easy,
I'm
right?
role-playing as the entrepreneur.
Yeah. So it's not too hard to track. Now, I want to give you one key aspect of this role play, which is that you're raising money, and the only constraint I'm going to put on you is that you have nobody committed yet.
Okay.
in this role play. And just so you know, this is the hardest part. So you volunteered to be number one.
Cool.
That's the hardest part. Because if anybody here's ever raised money, anybody in the room ever raised a round, hardest part, first third, middle third, or last third in your experience? In terms of first third, but hardest part by what order of magnitude? 10 million. Order of magnitude 10 million. I just raised another fund over $150 million. First 50 million, way harder, right? So this is the hard part. So you got nothing to lean on in terms of other people are in or whatever. You're just trying to get me to say yes.
Cool.
To be in. So that's the setup.
Great.
Cool?
I'm in.
All right, let's go. Marcel, great to see you again. How's it going?
Fantastic. Can't complain.
Good, good. What's new?
Well, we're focused on really changing the world from a sustainability standpoint.
I know, it's amazing what you guys are working on. We love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. So did I tell you we are essentially, we reward and incentivize employees to
Yep.
help their company save money and reduce their carbon footprint?
Yeah, we've met a few times. I've been really excited about what you're up to.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're pre-seed and would love an investment.
Yeah.
Sign right here.
Yeah. And obviously, I've been paying attention to what you're doing. I think you guys should totally raise money.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So do you have any advice on maybe how we should approach it or go about this particular round?
Well, I think figure out how much money you need and the type of investors you want, and really just get out there and hit the road. It's a lot of work.
So we're raising $300,000 to really cap off our TechStars round. And do you think that's the right approach we should be taking?
Well, how long does that give you?
About 6 months of runway.
6 months. That's pretty short.
Yeah.
You'd be raising money again in 3 months, right?
That's true. That's
'Cause,
true.
I mean, unless you're going to turn profitable or something.
That's true.
Yeah. But hey, I think whatever works for you. My first instinct is, wow, maybe a little bit more runway, 12 to 18 months. But obviously, it depends on what your plan is.
Sure. Are you actively investing at the pre-seed stage currently?
Well, we think about it as seed. So yeah, we have a fund. It's a $150 million fund. We invest in seed rounds, but also later in Series A type rounds.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have a specific type of company that you invest in?
I like those companies that make a lot of money.
Sure.
Sure. The ones that are going to change the world and make it a better place too sometimes, which is great.
Absolutely.
So we don't have a sort of thematic focus.
Sure. So the market opportunity that's ahead of us is humongous, and we think it's something that you and your partners would be incredibly excited about, and that's why I wanted to chat with you about
Yeah.
our raise.
Thanks. Yeah, we are excited. We just had a meeting Monday. We have our partner meeting every Monday, and we actually talked about you guys.
Great.
And we love the team. We love what you're up to. It's really early, but that's what we do.
Great.
Yeah.
And so what would you recommend from a process standpoint as it relates to next steps? We're clearly interested. We think as a strategic investor, you'd add a lot of value to what we're building.
Well, figuring out the the dynamics of the raise, right? I think again, is it really 6 months? Is 300K the right number? I think figuring out some of that stuff, and then just letting people have that opportunity to come and pitch them, et cetera.
Absolutely. So just to clarify, it's 6 months, but we're capping off our existing round, so it really kind of gives us an additional 3 months.
So you have some money in the bank, right?
That's
Got it.
correct.
Got
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
Okay. All right, I want to pause here. I asked people who are watching on the video or anybody in the room if you could use the mic. I would love to know what you like or don't like about the conversation that you're seeing at this point. Any thoughts or comments?
I got the sense that he was trying to get information from you that he didn't know, in the sense that he didn't have enough information to tell you why you should invest. He's asking you, I got the sense he was asking you for information on how he should structure his round, versus coming to you saying, this is what we're doing, we're confident in the approach, we want you to be a part of it, how can we get you involved?
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of the ask for advice if you want money thing going on. You've heard that adage, if you want money, ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for money. People give you advice instead. So he's sort of feeling me out. What's the fund like? And I think that's okay if you don't know those answers. But a little bit confusing on the 6 month thing, and the plan was a little bit unclear, but he clarified it. Other thoughts?
It feels a little transactional, kind of going right to, and I guess it's in a meeting with an investor and
Yep.
a potential
A
company.
little transactional.
Mhm.
I don't really feel that personally. I'm expecting to be asked to, I'm an investor, right? That's what I do for a living. And so I'm expecting to, sort of have that conversation at some point. Yep.
I thought it actually, you gave him a couple openings to be more transactional, and I think he kind of didn't grab those. Oh.
Gave him a couple openings to be more transactional.
More transactional and
Do
asked
you have
for-
an example of that?
Yeah, I think there was times when you said 150 million, and he went back to, can you give me some advice? And I think he should have come in with,
What's he trying to do?
get you to write a first check to the company on this round.
Get me to write a first check to the company. Does anybody agree with that or disagree with that? Agree, disagree?
I think that might be the overarching goal, but it seems like you're trying to figure out where you are in the conversation. In a really, like, I love the questions you were asking and, like, bringing you back to question in the sense of, like, this is a funny setup too, but, like, who are you? Am I asking, before I do a hard ask, let's get some soft in there. Let me get you on the yes train.
That's fine. I feel that too. It's a little bit of a warm-up thing. Has anybody here ever been on a date before? You have? Yes. One of you? You warm up a little bit with the person that you're going to ask to go out, right? I mean, it's sort of awkward to just walk in and ask. So it's kind of natural, I think. Yep, last thought?
I feel like he's setting you up to lead around, not necessarily just to throw some money in.
Well, this is why I asked what he's trying to do. Yeah. Is it literally get me to write a check?
I would say lead the round and write the check.
Lead the round and write a check, and you feel that he's looking for a lead.
Yeah.
Do you feel that? What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to get you to give me the answer.
What answer?
Meaning, what would get you interested?
Trying to figure out
and excited.
exactly what I want to see so he can pretend to be that.
No, so that. Not exactly. So that I can find the commonality, right?
He's looking for what I care about a little bit.
Yeah.
And this is the instinct that we have, is what does the other person care about? But what is he actually trying to do? What does he really want from this conversation?
Yes.
Money. Does he want me to go get my wallet and give him money? No. What does he want?
Start a relationship, I think.
We have a relationship. We've met several times in the program. We know each other.
I feel like he wants to understand how to sell to you. That's what
He's
I'm
trying to understand how to sell. But what do you think he should want?
Get the next meeting, get you to go pitch your committee, your partners that you're
Get the
stoked
next
about.
meeting. What if there doesn't need to be a next meeting?
I think he needs to get you to write the check and say you'll lead the round.
Write the check and say I'll lead the round. Keep hearing the word lead.
He wants you to be an evangelist for this round.
Evangelist. I think he wants me to commit to invest. Any of you who've been on a date ever end up getting married? One, two. A couple people. When you went on the date and you got married, there was an interim process, most likely, where someone maybe asked the other to marry them. Is this, yeah? And was that a commitment that was made in that moment? Okay. Was there a ring on the finger that was, sorry, there was a ring on the finger, but was there a marriage license that had been signed? Was it filed? Was it contracted?
Not at that moment.
Interesting. So there was a commitment with no contract, no check that had been written yet. We call that a soft commitment. Have you heard this term? I think what Marcel's trying to do is get me to commit. I don't think he's trying to get me to write a check. I'm not sure he's trying to get me to lead, although he might be. I don't know. What was in your head? Did you want a lead investor or just a commitment?
Well, I think we did, but that we do need a lead investor, but that wasn't the.
We need a lead
immediate
investor.
goal. Yeah.
Sure you do. 60% of Techstars rounds have no lead investor. That interesting to you guys?
Yeah, it is. Yes.
60% have no lead investor. First round's out of the accelerator. I made that number up, but it's about right. It's rough order. I don't have the exact number.
It's directionally correct.
92% of statistics are made up. But it's about 60%, more than half, have no lead investor. A round, B round, sure, probably have a lead investor. Seed round, often, mostly party rounds. Let's talk about lead investor for a minute while Marcel sits here awkwardly and listens to me. And then we'll jump back into the role play. Lead investor, this happens a lot and tell me if it's happened to you. Hey, David, I'm really interested in investing, or, I'd love to invest in your company, but, come back to me when you have a lead investor. You've heard this? You've heard this? People out there, you've heard it. That's why you're saying, maybe I want a lead investor. So what happens is you hear that a lot, and so you go around and you ask everyone to be your lead investor. I want you to know how that feels to me. That sounds like extra work and extra responsibility. I'm going to put my name on this, vouch for it, take responsibility for it, do extra legal work, do extra due diligence because I'm putting my name on it. Lead investor, extra work. I would encourage you to never ask anyone to be a lead investor. Just don't do it. I know it's confusing because you think that's what other investors want, but that's BS. When they say to you, come back to me when you have a lead investor, I want you to translate it as if you just heard someone speak Spanish to you and you pulled out your little dictionary. What does that mean? It means I'm not ready to commit. So on the floor here between Marcel and I, there is a line. It's invisible, but it's there. And that's the line of commitment. I'm over here. You want me over there on your team, right?
Right.
I mean, I assume you want me because I'm awesome.
Right.
Whoever the investor is, you want them on your team. In economics, there's this notion of a free option. Have you ever heard of that? What does it cost me to tell you how interested I am, how excited I am? Has anybody ever felt like this has happened to them? I'm so excited, and then you just can't get them over the line? This is the common challenge. So this is invisible line of commitment. You want me over there, I'm over here. I would like a free option. I would like to tiptoe up to that line and get as close as I can without crossing it. Because then when you get a term sheet and things are going great, I'm your first call and I get to jump into that round. But it costs me nothing. It's called a free option. It's what's in the mind of the investor in a conversation like this. Any questions about that? Make sense? Okay. You know I'm trying to take a free option. You know that you're going to hear me say how excited and interested I am. We just talked about you were super excited because I want to be right here so that I can jump in whenever I want. It doesn't cost me anything. What's in his mind is he needs momentum, he needs progress, he needs commitments. He doesn't need a check. I want to point that out. He doesn't need a contract. Just like when you get engaged, you don't need a contract, or you don't have to decide exactly where you're getting married and what church and what day, right? But you want to know that there's commitment there. Make sense?
Total.
So you want a commitment, am I right?
Yep.
Everybody agree? Good, because it's easier when you agree. Questions? Yes, sir.
What kind of commitment?
What kind of commitment? A commitment to invest. I call it a soft commitment. Does anybody know what that is? So we're trying to get one, but we have no idea what it is.
Verbal.
Definition of a soft commitment is a verbal commitment. What does other people think it is? That's one guess.
Non-dollar specific.
Non-dollar specific. Other guesses?
Emotional commitment.
Emotional commitment. Think about that engagement. Right? I'm committing to do this thing even though I don't know all the details. Do I have any outs from an engagement? What are they? What's that?
Breaking it off.
I can technically break it off anytime I want. That might be reputationally damaging to me. To say, I'm going to pull on this thread, to say yes and then for no apparent reason decide, I don't want to do it. I might be poisoning the dating pool a little bit, but I could do it. Due diligence is a very well understood one that normally isn't even talked about. Of course, I'm going to look at legal documents and we're going to work through that. That in the context of engagement, that's simply, am I willing to sign the thing? I mean, we know what that contract looks like. So thinking about engagement before the marriage, what other reasons might I call it off? Price. Prenuptial conflict. Sure.
You met somebody else.
met somebody else. Again, reputational damage, but okay. Dishonesty, abuse, right? Lack of ability to agree on when we're getting married, how we're getting married. Lots of things that are pretty well understood. A soft commitment, this is the key thing. You don't need to write it down because I'm going to give you the cheat sheet. But this definition, I mean, you're doing this every day and you don't know what you're trying to accomplish. That's a problem. And so the first thing I try to teach here is, what is soft commitment? Because this is what you want. You don't want hard commitment. Please don't slide a contract across the table when you have nobody committed and no terms figured out. That's not, you don't walk into a bar and say, hey, we should hang out sometime, will you sign this marriage contract? You just don't do that, right? You work up to that, but eventually you get commitment for a date, commitment to get married, and then you actually have the final step is this hard commitment. So soft commitment, I don't think it's a verbal commitment. That's part of it. You're using the word to define the word, right? So that's a challenge. Soft commitment to me is that someone says yes, that they'll invest a specific amount of money, because I also heard unclear. I like to call it a specific amount of money. We know what we're talking about here. We're talking about a $100,000 investment or a $300,000 investment. And to me, there are clearly understood reasons why it might not actually happen. Due diligence always being one that everybody understands. But there may be others, right? So if we have a clear understanding that I'm in for $300K, assuming that I like your board of directors and that the pricing is no higher than $5 million pre-money, and that those are my only conditions, then we have a soft commitment. That make sense? If we say, I'm in, but I don't know how much for, and I'm worried about your board of directors, we don't. That's my definition. Is that helpful? So now that you have a definition, you can actually work towards meeting it.
Absolutely.
Specific amount of money and fully understood list of conditions as to why it may not actually happen.
Absolutely.
We're going to go back into role play now that we know this. So where were we, Marcel, before we were so rudely interrupted by the phone
David,
call?
I was just sharing with you that we're actually taking commitments now for our upcoming round.
Great.
And is there a specific check size that you'd feel most comfortable in?
I would say on average, we write about a $250,000 check. We've written as low as $100,000, as high as $1 million.
Great. Is that a commitment? Meaning, is that something that, are you interested in investing in the business at that level?
Yeah, we're super interested in investing. We were talking about a $250,000, so
Sure.
that's sort of the level we were talking about.
Okay. And would there be any conditions? You mentioned earlier you really like our team, you like our board. What would be the conditions around?
Well, I think once you sort of have a sense of what the round's going to look like in terms of, valuation, size,
Sure.
that would really matter to us.
And from a valuation cap standpoint, is there any ceiling that we should be mindful of?
Stop you there. Okay, first I want to point out, it's not you, it's everyone, but it's freaking awkward, right? I mean, Did you see how awkward? You even laughed at yourself for a minute there, right?
Yeah.
And this is something you want to practice. Quick show of hands in the room. If you could give me a fist bump like this, everybody. Just sort of put your fist out. David's committed or David's not committed. What's your current view? Just flip and leave it there. Everybody do it. Just don't change it if you flip. Some people are cheating and they get like that. That's not an option. We only got one, maybe two yes commitments. So for those that said no, why is there no commitment? Anyone?
Energy's off.
Energy's off.
Yeah, just like
Well-
perception. You're trying to get somewhere, it's a big thing. So
Like I went in for the kiss a couple times
Yeah.
and didn't get.
I call that the lean in moment.
Leaned in and not yet.
Like more information, but it wasn't like there was no.
I read the room as 90% no, 10% yes. And so the no's generally feel like, it's still in progress, but the couple yeses, so I'm curious what in your mind was the yes?
I think you gave the buying signal.
I did. Is getting a buying signal a commitment? Anyone?
Getting closer to that line.
Getting a buying signal is not a commitment. It is a buying signal, but it's not a commitment.
I might amend my thumbs up. It felt like you were getting there.
Of course. Look, this is all learning. I'm not.
I don't know why.
It felt good. It felt good. I would agree with you. It felt good. Is feeling good a commitment? No. So what is a commitment? Specific amount of money. Was it clear to you how much money we were talking about?
$250.
It was clear? It wasn't clear to me.
Oh, I thought you said 250.
I said 250 is typical, 100 low end, $1 million high end. We have a tape, we can play it back.
Gotcha.
And you said, would that amount of money work for you? Something like that.
Yeah.
Which amount, right?
Million sounds great.
So
you had mentioned you were thinking about 250 for his company at your board meeting, I think.
He said a quarter, which is not a specific numeric.
yeah. Well, in my mind, we had talked about a few numbers and it wasn't clarified. And did we have an exhaustive list of all the reasons I might not invest? He was just sort of getting to this, what are your conditions, which investors want to understand. So I think great job, but I wanted to point out the awkwardness of the moment that you ask, because it's really awkward. And if you can practice that, it's just like asking somebody on a date. It just is awkward,
Yeah.
right? And so if you can practice that ask and find a way that's comfortable for you, it's really helpful. I'm going to let you go, Marcel. Thank you so much. You did awesome. And I want to talk for just a few minutes while you do a little mic switch thing there.
Sure, yeah.
About this idea of the ask. Okay. It's really hard. And my view is that until you ask the investor for a commitment, now, everything else is just small talk. And it leads to confusion if you have happy ears. So we're entrepreneurs, we're an optimistic bunch. I'm an entrepreneur too. We want to have happy thoughts, we want to have good things happen to us. I call it happy ears. You hear something that sounds like a buying sign and you start to think, I'm getting a commitment here. That's fine, but challenge yourself. Am I having happy ears? There's a really easy technique that I want to teach you. When you get to that moment where you feel like I'm getting thumbs up here, it's called reflective listening. Has anybody ever been to therapy of any kind before? I have. Did it teach you reflective listening by any chance? Yeah. What it is when you hear something that is big, don't use it all the time or you seem crazy. But when you hear something that's big, like you feel like, oh, I just got a commitment, you play it back. So what I hear you saying is that you're committed to invest $250,000 with the only condition being whatever it is. Do I have that right? So my goal here is to make you a better communicator. In the big moments, if you use reflective listening, you will be a better communicator. Now, a lot of people have the instinct, and Marcel actually did this, to use it as a weapon, right? I said, yeah, we're interested in 250, and he said, so that's a commitment, right? He was sort of playing it back to me. And when I stopped him, I was about to say no. I told you I was interested in $250,000. We have an instinct as humans to make things less awkward, and so we ask people questions like, are you interested? Of course, I'm super interested. To be right up next to the line of commitment. That is not a commitment. Interest is not a commitment. Our happy ears tell us to think of it as a commitment. And if we use reflective listening, David, what I hear you saying is you're in for $250,000. I have that right. You force the other person to confirm it. Right? And the pattern here is we want to get out all of the conditions to that commitment. So it's not enough that they say I'm in for 250. Say, you're in for 250 and I'm hearing that you're in regardless of anything. There's no conditions, no other issues. You're just in, is that right? You need to press on that because it's probably not right. That would be a miracle if that was right. They don't care about terms. They don't care about round size. Come on. Make sure you're hearing it, what's real, by using reflective listening in the big moments. That make sense? Okay, if people watching the video have questions, I know you have a text number you can send them into, so we want to hear from you guys as well. Any questions on this in the room? Okay, we're pushing for a soft commitment, specific amount of money, well understood conditions. We're going to use reflective listening when we think we're getting there, right? So that we don't have happy ears. Because when we have happy ears, we go, yes, high five, I'm going to get a beer. And we start telling people that that investor's in. And that leads to making you a liar. Part of being a bad communicator is that you seem like a liar, even though it's not your intent. Because someone's going to call me to double check that fact, and I'm going to say, no, I'm just interested. We're talking about it, but I haven't committed yet. So never let a conversation be unclear. That leads to bad juju in the community, right? People are going to talk about you not being truthful. Mike?
So let's say for a second that we kind of kept going around and around where you were just interested but wouldn't cross the line. Is there a kind of a good way for us as entrepreneurs to exit that situation
Yes.
or cut it off in a way that's not
You want to get a commitment. How do I get through that? And we're going to practice that. I think I have another volunteer. Number 2. Who does number 2 work for? Austin Powers? Nobody? Okay. Come on up. How's it going?
Good.
Remind me of your name.
Don.
Don.
Nice to see
This
you
is
again.
Don, everybody.
Hi, Don.
Don, I want to do the same thing with you.
Yep.
I'm just going to reset.
Okay.
You've got this reflective listening skill in your back pocket now. You know what you're trying to get, soft commitment, specific amount of money, all of the well understood conditions to that. Remember, I don't know what a condition is as an investor. It's not language that I know how to use. So what Marcel's asking is, how do I break through this kind of awkward moment and force those conditions out, right? To put them on the table and actually address them. And then I'm going to give you the pattern that is magic. $5.5 billion in today. I'm making this video in 2018, so it's probably a lot more than that if you're watching the video. Same role play. Can you do it? Nobody committed yet. Can't lean on that. Good to see you again. How's it going?
Good, David. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
It's been a while.
Yeah, I think it's been like a week. That's
Yeah.
a long, so it's a long time in startup world.
It is a long time in startup world. Sure.
Don's pack is off. It's a little switch on the top. It's a little switch on the top right there.
we go.
Don, your pack is now on.
All right, we're ready to go.
As I was saying, great to see you again.
Great to see you. It's been about a week.
Yeah.
It feels longer.
Feels longer, yeah.
It's totally true in the startup world. It's like, gosh, we get so busy, but we've made, even in the last week, a lot of progress.
Great.
Pipelines filling up, teams coming together. We really feel like we're making good progress, and we're excited about the progress we're making talking with you guys.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've been a big fan of what you're doing, so it's good to hear.
Cool. Have you guys had any internal communications about kind of our pitch and the business? And I'd love to get your feedback on how you guys are thinking about where we are.
Absolutely. We love what you're up to. We actually just talked about it on Monday. Everybody's super psyched about it. Lot of interest, Don. Super interested, yeah.
Cool. I'd love to understand, like, was that you and your partners? Have you talked to your LPs about it? I'm just trying to understand
LP schmelp. We make the decisions around here. Our LPs, they're limited partners. We call them limited for a reason.
Cool.
Yeah, we don't worry about them.
Yeah. How about your investment partners? How about the other partners in the VC?
Like I said, we've been talking about what you're up to, and we're super excited about it.
Yeah.
All of us. Yeah. So we're really encouraged to see the progress.
Cool.
And congrats on that progress. It's been great to watch.
Thanks. So as you probably remember, we're raising a $1.5 million round, just kind of getting started on that. We've been talking internally about you guys as partners. And we think you have so much to bring to the table, right? We're not just looking for money. We're looking for strategic advice, right connections in the industry. And for us, it feels like a really good fit.
Yeah, good. Well, that's always nice to hear.
Yeah. So with that said, we'd love to take the next step with you guys and start talking about what an investment looks like from your side.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to do that whenever you're ready.
I'm ready right now.
So tell me about the round, I guess.
Yeah, so it's a $1.5 million round.
Yep.
$5 million, it's a convertible note, $5 million cap with a 20% discount.
Stop you there.
Okay.
Good. Okay, here we have a little bit different setup, different amount of money. I want to point out both entrepreneurs so far have told me the size of the round. Marcel, in fairness, I think I asked you how much money or how long. Here I haven't asked you. Okay, so I just want to point out subtle difference, right? I've just heard the terms. 20% discount, $5 million cap, convertible note, $1.5 million raise. Okay? All that stuff was created right there. Okay? Before the ask. So all of those things that just came out of your mouth, okay, and this is good learning, are expectations that you have set. We'll raise at least $1.5 million. We'll do it at a $5 million cap. Remember the role play, you have nobody committed. So I'm not saying it's too much money, I don't know. You may have a lot of confidence that you've already got tons of interest in $1 million of that. Like I don't know the scenario, but I just want to point out that our mouths make commitments and expectations, and our ears are the secret weapon. So less is more. Everything you do before you say, will you invest, is giving away information and setting expectations. It's okay, as long as you're super confident in those expectations, great. But remember one of the big killers, what if there's only $1 million in interest, and what if I didn't care that he was raising $1.5 million and I thought $1 million was plenty? What if I wanted to write $1 million check and you never get another check from anybody? Now you've set an expectation that that's a failure. And I know that you have a spreadsheet. Tells you how much money you need to raise in order to be, executing the plan and all that. Does anyone else have a spreadsheet? Yeah. Fantasy.xls. I like to call that spreadsheet. This is what's going to happen, and our sales and how much money we need. I want to point out that the amount of money that you should be looking to raise and what you say don't need to be the same thing. In fact, I would like to point out that the amount of money that you're going to raise, let's call it X, is a variable. It's a variable. If you can raise more money on a higher price, are you likely to do it up to some reasonable limit? Yes, you are. If you say no, you're kidding yourself. You would raise more for the same dilution in almost all cases.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
The trick is not to be trapped by pricing. Get people to commit and figure out pricing at the end. The mistake is to talk about pricing in the beginning. You are effectively negotiating with no leverage in this scenario. $5 million cap. That feels expensive. How about 3? Now we've opened this discussion where I have leverage because I know that I'm the first committer. And if you want my commitment, which sounds like you do, I have some leverage. So we're talking about price because you created that conversation, right? Mm-hmm. Versus what I want you all to learn how to do, and this is the hack. This is the trick. $5 billion trick. Ask for a commitment. They're an investor, you're an entrepreneur, they're expecting it, ask for a commitment. How much money do you typically invest? Oh, $250,000? Sometimes you invest up to $1 million. How about you commit today to invest $1 million in my company? Let's talk about awkward. But lean into the awkwardness. Everything you do before you ask that question is giving away and setting expectations from your mouth. So small talk's great. How are the kids? How's it going? It's been a week. David, we've been talking about you, and we're really excited about you guys. We know your typical check size is about $250,000. We are atypical. We'd love to ask you for a $500,000 commitment. Could you do that? Very different, very awkward. If you can learn to do this, you'll be a better communicator. You're being super direct, and you'll definitely be a better fundraiser, and you'll have more success. Get to the ask. Because what happens when you ask? Have you ever been in a situation where you really wanted to ask somebody on a date? Back to dating, there's a lot of similarities. I really want to ask you on a date. What do I do? We should hang out sometime. Come here often, buy you a drink. There's all this stuff that you do. And at some point, if you actually want to go on a date with the person, you say, can I take you to Olive Garden on Tuesday night? And what does that create? Because we should totally hang out sometime. Yeah, we should totally hang out sometime. Cost me nothing. Decision point. Okay? And you know what the answer is, right? No. In almost all cases, it's going to be no. Awesome. But it's not no forever. It's I'm not ready to invest. Walk in and you ask someone out on a date, they're going to say, I don't even know you. I call this barfing out what I'm actually concerned about. If he asked me directly, David, will you commit $500,000 right now? You're going to see my face change. I've got to deal with that question. And this is what I want you to learn how to do. When I have to deal with that question, I have to tell you why I'm not ready. You don't have to guess. I'm going to tell you. Your ears get to hear what they're actually concerned about. And you don't have to make stuff up. You know what you need to deal with. So Don, let's go back into the role play.
Okay.
And just be awkward, man. Lean into it and just try to make that ask. Whatever amount of small talk has already happened, you told me those things, so you got to live with that. But just ask. Cool?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's exciting that you're raising money. Yeah.
So David, we have loved getting to know you, getting to know your firm. We think you guys would be great investors. We'd love for you to sign up for $750,000 commitment today.
750 is a little bit more than we typically do in a seed round. We're very interested, super interested, but 750 is a little bit of a high number for us. You know, we were thinking more in the range of 300K, to be honest.
Awesome.
Is that something that might work for you?
500 would be better.
I understand, but I don't think I can get there.
You don't think you can get there.
Yeah.
But you could commit to $300,000 today.
You see that? Can you commit to $300,000 today? Not, are you interested? Sometime in the future, can we get there? But right now, I love the word today. Love it. Can you commit right here to $300,000? What do you think I'm going to say? No. I mean, once in a while, somebody's going to say, yeah, totally. I mean, you did tell me the price, and maybe I'm fine with it. But I'm probably going to have some concerns. So watch what happens, and I want to see if you remember the skill I taught you earlier. When you think, because right now, is there a commitment here?
Not yet.
Almost, which is not a commitment. Because you have a definition that you know how to use. We have a specific amount of money. I haven't said yes, he just asked me. I'm going to have to deal with that. So we're going to jump back in.
Okay.
Can you commit to $300,000 here today? He just said. You know, I'm a little concerned with that valuation. I mean, it's pretty early. This is really risky business, this startup thing. That's probably my biggest concern, to be honest, is can we get to that kind of pricing? And of course, you know, you're raising $1.5 million and we're 300K of it. So I would want to see you get the full $1.5 million to execute against your plan. I don't really want to write a check and I'm, you know, the only one, right? Does that make sense?
Sure, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But we got to start somewhere.
Totally. Yeah.
So, what else? Is there anything else you need in terms of to be comfortable with that 300,000? Is it only valuation? Is that your only concern? Do you have any other concerns?
You like that? Let me make sure I'm understanding your concerns here. I would like to do a little bit more reflective listening. So David, what I hear you saying is you're in for 300,000, but you're concerned that we need to raise the full 1.5 million. and you're not really too sure about the pricing, do I have that right? And I would say, yeah, that's what I said. And then he would need to say, are there any other conditions to the commitment you're making here today? I love the word today. Love that word. Not maybe someday we're talking about a theoretical future. Maybe we should hang out sometime. We're talking about a commitment that we're making here today. So love that word. Y'all use that word today. Here, now, today, right? There are going to be more things, of course. Now, note that I'm pushing on the 1.5 million bar that he created. Maybe I would have said, look, I want you to have at least 12 months of runway. Similar to what I said to you, Marcel, right? I really want you to have at least 12 months of runway. Don't do the math in your head and say, well, that's $1 million, and so as long as we raise at least $1 million. David, if I hear you right, as long as we have 12 months of runway, you're in for 300K. Is that right? So don't change what you're hearing, play it back. Because you can manipulate 12 months of runway if you need to, but you can't manipulate $1 million. Right. You can give yourself more time. You can hire less people. Okay? So try not to create commitments that you don't need to create. If he had not said $1.5 million, we might not be talking about that condition being as high of a bar. We might be talking about it being $1 million, or we might be talking about being 12 months. If he had not said the pricing, we would have had a conversation about it, but it probably would have been different, right? Maybe I would have committed without caring about that, but now you're not going to get a commitment because we're going to have a negotiation here. That's where this one's going, right? How about 4? He's negotiating where he has no leverage at all because he has nobody committed. So make price the last thing, not the first thing. Make price the last thing. Talk about it at the end where you have some leverage, not at the beginning where you have none. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. There's no questions from the people watching this thing. They have a text number, I know they do. Yes?
Well, one thing I thought was interesting is and it may have been because he started with the pricing, but he threw out, can we get you in for $750,000?
Love it.
But then he never asked why that didn't work for you. You threw out 300 and he was almost negotiating against himself versus understanding why the 750 didn't work or how he could get you to comfortable at the 750.
Yeah, it's a good point. I like that you went high, right? You looked at the range and you sort of went for it, and that's great because maybe they're going to say yes. Maybe they like that, sort of confidence. We had the dynamic in my role play in my mind is we had talked about it and we had talked about 300. So that was the conversation I'd already had with my partners, and it's a typical number for us. He's probably not going to get me up. That's sort of where I was, but it's not a bad idea to try. And certainly understanding never hurts. Question here?
If the investor brings up price early, do you kind of deflect and put it off and reposition it for the latter part of the conversation, or do you address it?
It's a great question. I'll switch you out and we'll address that question because I want to do another role play. Thank you so much.
Thanks, David.
You see the sort of creating things?
Yeah.
Weapon here, not here. Here, right? Good job.
Awesome.
I like the ask.
Thank you.
Well done. Okay, while we switch out the mic, I want to talk about that actually working through that and dealing with price. Because that's going to be an issue, 99.6% of the time. Every once in a while, and I've seen it, you have an investor who says, I'm in for 300K, I don't care. Because they assume it'll be either uncapped note or a realistic valuation. But almost all the time, price is going to be an issue. And I want to show you some jujitsu that can help you deal with that. Use their weight against them, right? And the pattern I'm going to show you over and over again in this communication is take away the concern. We're entrepreneurs, right? We like to solve problems. Don't solve the problem. It's different. Take away the concern is different from solving the problem. So some of you have personal relationships and your significant other or whatever is trying to tell you about something, and you're trying to solve that problem. And they say something to you like, I just want you to listen to me. And you're just problem solvers, right? I mean, that's who we are. And so we want to tell them how I would fix that if I were you. You have this friend that's annoying you. Let me tell you how I'd think about that. I just want you to hear me, right? There's this dynamic that happens a lot. And I want you to think about how can I take away the problem? How can I make that thing not be an issue without having to solve it? And valuation is a key one of these, right? I mean, it's tempting to throw out a valuation and have a negotiation, but I want you to make that last, not first. So how the heck do you do that? So we're going to try to do that with our next volunteer. Come on up. Aaron, right?
Yes.
Yes. Victim, yes. High five. All right, Aaron. Reset, same conversation. Try to get me to commit, and I'm going to make price the issue.
Okay.
And let's see how you handle it. Make sense? Same setup.
Yes.
Nobody committed, nothing to lean on. It was hard. Ready?
Sure.
You were paying attention earlier, and you know.
I was.
Yes.
Yes.
You're an entrepreneur, and I'm an
Marcelo
investor. It's hard.
asked my question.
It's very difficult to track. I'm going to really focus in on price and make you deal with that. Even though you're not going to give me, you're just going to ask me to invest, right? So let's start with you making it awkward as reasonably early as possible and asking me to commit today, here, right? And then I'm going to sort of focus on that. Cool?
Okay.
Aaron, how's it going? Good to see you.
Things are going well. How about you?
Really good, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. So we oversubscribed on our last round,
Yeah.
and we're just about to open our Series A. And I know with the work that you guys do, it would be an honor for you to be a part of our team, and I would like to know whether you would be interested in investing $1 million in our next round.
Absolutely. We were just talking about it. $1 million is a really interesting fit for us.
Excellent.
So why am I stopping?
Interested.
Yeah, we have a tendency to make it not awkward. Interested, future state, maybe sometime. Fair? So totally reasonable. I just want to point out, like, it's a warm-up question. It's fine. Yep, really interested. Not a commitment. Really interested. Not a commitment. Okay. Like, it's a good. Are you guys interested? Yeah. It's human to try to figure out, am I about to make a fool out of myself, right? By asking this question. Hey, are you seeing anyone? Well, no, I'm not. Oh, well, would you like to go out sometime? Right. Sure, I'd love to go out sometime. When is that happening? Never. How about Tuesday? Well, I got to get my hair done on Tuesday, so that doesn't work. Wednesday? Childcare problem. Whatever, right? People are going to find the next reason, so you have to work through that. So it's totally good as a warm-up, but that's not asking for a commitment, right? It's a safe way of doing testing. Go ahead.
Well, that's great news. I'm glad to know that you guys are interested.
So interested.
Excellent. Would you be willing to commit to $1 million?
Wow, so you're at that point.
We are.
Do we know what the deal looks like? I mean, obviously it'd be hard to commit without knowing what portion of the company I'm buying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can definitely talk about that. There are a number of things that are going into this. So just starting the commitment process right now, getting you guys signed up, and I can provide you whatever information you need to be comfortable.
So you don't know how much money you're raising yet, or do you know?
We have a pretty good idea. We're looking for an 18-month runway.
Which is roughly how much cash?
About $3 million.
$3 million. So we're talking about being $1 million of the $3 million.
Exactly.
And that's a good fit for you?
That's solid.
Because that's what we were thinking about. So that all sounds fine. I think the challenge is maybe as you make progress and you get, the round gets a little bit more definition, you'll know that pricing, and I think I'd need that in order to be able to give you an answer.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, we can have that discussion if you want, but.
Totally. So I get you the pricing, and you guys would be willing to commit to $1 million?
Once we have the pricing, I could make the decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So I'll get you that on Tuesday.
Sounds good.
And we'll talk about that.
Sounds good. Comments?
I love the.
Is there a commitment?
No, there's no commitment.
Clear now?
A clear.
A lot of interest.
Yeah.
I grant you that. Did you feel a commitment?
No.
You felt a lot of interest.
Yes.
Free option for the win, right?
I like how you spun the 18-month runway as the primary pricing round. So
Good.
like that was
very
that was
good.
Well done.
Right? But I pushed her on it, and I said I was gonna.
But it could change 'cause you
people
can
might
raise-
say that sounds fine, right?
How do you feel about the difference between like the ask for the money versus the ask for the conditions for the money? Whereas I feel like she could almost just ask for what would it take to make a commitment?
What would it
Wouldn't that be-
take to make a commitment is a future question. What future things could I do sometime ambiguously in the future to get towards a commitment? Versus asking for the commitment is about right now. And remember I talked about barfing out? You want to trigger that barf out of the concern. They don't know the word condition. They don't know what it means. But I guarantee you when you ask for a commitment, they're going to tell you why they can't make it. And you're not going to have to guess anymore. So ask about it now, not what would it take for the future, interest, and all these safe things. This is the key thing, is to get to that question. What else?
I felt like when you had the concern about the price, she went really quickly to just like, okay, well, I'll get you that, like, I need to get you that price, as opposed to like digging
Right.
into more, like, why is it that you need to
Correct.
understand the price?
So there are several paths in this moment. The path that Erin chose was, I'm going to go home, think about it, and we're going to talk on Tuesday. That's okay. That's fine. I'm more than happy to have another meeting, and you'll do some thinking about it. In many cases, that might be the right answer, because you might be terrified to have a negotiation right now with the first million of a $3 million round, right? That might not feel like a great time to do it. That's one choice. Go away, think about it, come back. Another choice, have the negotiation. We're problem solvers, entrepreneurs. We want to solve that problem. We want to do the math, right, and come up with the answer. When we have no leverage, when we're talking to the first committer, is not the greatest time to do that. Okay? In this role play, I'm an investor who's really pushing on that. So I would not commit, and she knows I didn't commit, and you all know it, until she gives me that price. So she chose to take some time and come back to me.
Is there a way, you've been talking a lot about how the entrepreneur in this scenario has no leverage. Is there a way that they can gain some leverage throughout this conversation?
Take away the problem. So rather than, I'm gonna rewind with you a little bit. Rather than going away and thinking about it, which realistically, let's play that out, right? What would happen? You go away, you're gonna come back and you're gonna anchor high, right? And then we're gonna have the negotiation anyway. That's probably what would transpire. Unless you got other people committed, and then you can come back and say, now I'm at 3 million in or out. But most likely it's gonna be, you come back with a number and we have a negotiation on Tuesday instead of on Tuesday.
Exactly.
Right? So let's rewind that and let's try to deal with it. So you have three choices, I think. I'm taking choice number one away, which is let me think about it, because that's just going to come back to the same point in the conversation. Choice number two is to have the negotiation. You could say, well, we were thinking whatever, and we would have the negotiation. Does anybody know what choice number three is? What were you thinking? It's going to lead to the negotiation, but it's a different, you're giving away the anchor, right? What were you thinking? Right? I'm going to say what? Something very low. She's going to say something very high. I mean, this is a game. We all know how this game is played. I'm going to go low, she's going to go high, right? There is actually another choice besides having the negotiation. Do you want to know what it is? David Cohen jiu-jitsu move right here. Don't tell people that aren't in the family. You can do this with anything. David, I hear you. You're really concerned about the valuation. I am too. I want you to get a great deal. I want us to both do really well here. Assuming that we arrive at a valuation prior to closing that we're both comfortable with, can I count on your commitment for $1 million here today? See that? What are they going to say? Oh, shit. She just took away the concern. I don't have anything to be worried about. will you marry me? We'll figure out the church and the date. Don't worry about that. I would never hold you to your commitment if we can't figure out a day we're going to get married on. I would never hold you to your commitment if we don't arrive at a valuation that makes total sense to you before closing. Soft commitment, not a contract. There are outs. That becomes a well understood condition of closing. And you took it away. They have nothing to lean on with that concern anymore. This is the choice I would like for you to make. Choice number 3. You can do it with anything. Watch how it works. Come back to me. Try choice number 3 instead of choice number 2, which is, hey, I'm thinking 5 million, right? The previous role play threw a number at me. Here, there's no number yet. I just don't know yet. It's too early. In fact, X is moving. The amount of money I'm going to raise might change. Maybe I raise 5 million. You don't want to set a price right now if you're raising 5 instead of 3, do you? That would be crazy. What if you raise 10? You're going to hold on to that price from when you were raising 3? No. It's unrealistic. So take it away. Listen, Aaron, I would love to commit the $1 million, but price really matters to me. I need to know how much of the company I'm buying before I could ever commit.
Absolutely, that makes complete sense. As you know, we're early days yet, and I really want to be able to work with you on that valuation. If we set that at a number that is comfortable to you, by the time we close, would you be willing to commit $1 million today?
Look, as long as it's not some crazy number. I'm not trying to lowball you, and I mean a little, but
It's your job.
It's my job. You understand.
I hear you.
I want to be in, right? I'm super excited, but I also want to get a fair deal. So if what you're saying is that, before we go to closing, you're going to circle back to me and make sure I'm comfortable with pricing, I think that works.
I will absolutely circle back and make sure that you are comfortable.
What do you think?
It's a good moment for reflective listening.
Very good moment for reflective listening. Want to try it?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you want to make sure that you get a fair price for this company. And you do not want to commit to anything until you know that you have that price. So if I get you that price prior to signing, would you be willing to commit to $1 million today?
A little confusing. Here's how I would do it, and this is what you practice. Because don't tell me I'm not committed, tell me I am. Mm-hmm. What I hear you saying, David, is you're in for $1 million, you're making that commitment here today, but you have a condition that prior to closing, the pricing has to work for you. Is that what I'm hearing you say? See the difference?
Yes.
Don't say I'm not committed, tell me I am, right? And I would say, yeah, that's what I said. And then, what would the room say? Wrong.
Trick question.
Happy ears. Oh, I got one of them. I understand that he's only concerned about pricing and there's no other issues. It's not possible that he has another thing that he would say as a condition of closing. Of course. So reflective listening is 2 parts. Did I get it right? Is there anything else? Remember that one? Is there anything else? Is there any other condition to the commitment you're making here today besides that pricing prior to closing? Or is that the only one? Because if you stop there and you assume I'm committed and you never follow up and I don't get any reflective listening on that's the only thing, then I'd say, yeah, we figured out pricing. Am I committed? No, we figured out pricing, yeah, we understand that part. But that might not be the only thing. So your job is to be a great communicator, and reflective listening can really help you do it. What I hear you saying is you're in for $1 million, you're making a commitment of $1 million here today, assuming we figure out pricing before we close on that $1 million that's acceptable to you. Do I have that right? Great. Are there any other conditions besides that one condition to the commitment you're making here today, or is that the only one? Don't be afraid to make sure you're hearing it right. In fact, many of you who've gotten commitments have followed up with an email, and you've said, as we discussed today, you've agreed to commit $1 million. Maybe you said the terms or whatever. By the way, this take the problem away works in any scenario. It's a secret jiu-jitsu move It works. If I push on price, I say, Aaron, look, I've seen this David Cohen move before. I'll invest $1 million on $3 million pre. Does that work for you? You're raising $3 million on $3 million pre. Are you going to do that?
No.
No. So you're going to say no?
I'm going to say, let's talk about valuation when we get closer to the close.
You're going
if
to try
you're
again.
comfortable with that?
You're going to try again. You're going to take it back to this place of, look, it's early. I'm not really comfortable setting valuation. Okay, Aaron, but I'm telling you, I can't commit unless you agree that pricing is $3 million pre. In or out?
That's very direct.
Some people are like that.
I'm not committing to that.
You're not committing to that.
No.
Great, conversation over. Is there another way? Pattern. Hear their concern, accept their condition. Hear their concern, accept their condition. Hear their concern, accept their condition. Then they have no more. I know you don't want to accept the condition of $3 million pre-money because you're raising 3. That's 50% of your company. Plus they're going to throw an option pool in there, right? So, accept their condition. It's really counterintuitive to say, got it, if I hear you, you're in for $1 million as long as pricing is no higher than $3 million pre. Do I have that right? I know what your head's thinking. David, don't do that. Commitments are directional, gang. I make a commitment with my mouth. You make a commitment with your mouth. What I hear you saying, David, is you're in for $1 million as long as pricing is no higher than $3 million pre. Do I have that right? Yeah, that's what I said. Great. Listen, that feels low to me. I have to be honest with you. I expect that it's going to come in higher, but of course I won't hold you to your commitment if it comes in higher than that. Does that work for you? So I'm signaling that it may not work out. I'm not committing to $3 million pricing. I'm accepting your commitment to me that you'll invest if pricing is no higher than $3 million. Does that make sense? You can accept their condition, but be clear. I only invest in companies that are based in Boulder, Colorado. Well, we're going to be based in New York. Conversation over. Or, got it. The commitment you're making here is conditioned on us being in Boulder, Colorado. I'm not sure we're going to be in Boulder, Colorado, but I would never hold you to your commitment unless you were, unless we were going to be there. David, I want you to have an amazing board of directors. Well, I don't know who's on the board. Okay, come back to me later. Versus, David, I want you to have a great board of directors. Got it. The commitment you're making here today for $1 million is conditioned upon us having a board of directors that you think is great prior to closing. Do I have that right? I don't know who the board of directors is, but I would never hold you to your commitment if you didn't like them. Same thing over and over and over again. Pricing is the one that freaks everybody out. I didn't commit to $3 million pre. I took your commitment. And you want to know the secret? Those conditions are all going to fall away like they never existed in the first place. Why? Because now you've got a commitment and you build momentum and you get what? Oversubscribed. And when you get oversubscribed, guess who has the power now, suckers? I do. I was raising $500K and now I have $1.2 million in commitments. This is exciting. Well, I was raising 1.5 and I have 1.2 in commitments. Not quite there yet. You set that bar a little too high. Exciting to go from 500 to 1.2. Terrifying to an investor that you didn't get to your goal at 1.5 and you have 1.2. Same scenario, different expectations. Don't create those expectations. So when you're oversubscribed, you know that my conditions, let's say we ultimately arrived at a commitment. Yes, I'm in for $1 million as long as we figure out pricing at the end. And let's even throw in there, pricing's not going to be any higher than $3 million pre-money. You accepted my commitment to you, but you were clear with me that you weren't sure it was going to work out, right? And let's say that I wanted you to be in Boulder and one is you have a great board of directors, and now you're oversubscribed. You've got $5 million. And you're going to close that on what price? $5 million, what did you close it on?
7.
517. Probably could do better, but okay.
12.
This is better than 3. So now you're going to come back to me as a different role play. You got $5 million committed on $7 million pre. You were set out initially to raise 3. You come back to me to communicate that this is the scenario, and you're going to respect my condition. You know I'm not actually committed, right? Because the price is higher than what I said. So come back to me and tell me what's up. Aaron, good to see you. How's life?
Life's pretty good. Actually, we just got $5 million in commitments. We are oversubscribed. I know that you said that you would not.
High five.
Thank you. Pretty excited about it myself. I know that you weren't committed if our pre-money went above $3 million.
Yeah,
I wanted to
right.
let you know that it's at 7.
7.
Yeah, so it's
But
pretty
you're
high.
raising 5.
Yeah, and we've got runway covered.
Yeah, got it.
So are you in?
Well, thanks for asking. I appreciate that you respected that part of our conversation. Look, 7's definitely higher than I was thinking, but you're also raising more money, so I think I can get my mind around that. That you have more runway, and clearly with $5 million in the bank, it's worth more. So I think the pricing is okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely higher than I was expecting, but to be honest with you, I was just kind of lowballing you.
I know. That's your job.
Yeah, 7's totally reasonable.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that.
I just doing the math. Is it possible we could get $2 million of the round? As ownership, we like to have certain ownership. We have a $150 million fund, $1 million, $2 million, kind of same thing. So would you take 2 from us? We were the first committer, so hopefully that really helped.
Yeah, you make a good point. Yeah, so that puts us at 6 then if you come in at 2.
Yeah, or you could cut other people back. I don't care because I'm vicious like that. Yeah.
There are a couple
Whatever you
of
wanna do.
investors that I'm not terribly interested in bringing on.
Okay.
I'd like that chance.
Yeah.
Great, so we'll take 2?
Sounds good.
Excellent, I'll
Yeah.
send you the paperwork.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Perfect.
This is what happens. I'm trying to get a certain percentage of the company. I was trying to get it for $1 million. I got to pay 2. Whatever. She's got more money in the bank. She's got more upside. She's got more momentum. The dynamic flips at some point. But if you don't get the early commitments, you're never going to get there. So you can have the argument about price. You can have the argument about where you're going to be, or you can just accept their conditions and recognize that they're BS. Really, you're not going to invest when you were the first committer just because we're not in Boulder, even though we just got investment from Union Square in New York? Really? Doesn't really work that way. Conditions fall away with momentum. Okay, so when you have no momentum, take the conditions. Be careful not to shake their hand and say, yep, $3 million, because boy, that would be a different conversation if she'd have done that. Right? I would have said, no, you told me $3 million. You got to honor that. And of course, she could walk away and whatever, reputational damage. But the fact that you said to me, I'm not sure it's going to come in at $3 million, but if it does, I won't hold you to your commitment. And then you respected that. That felt really good, right? So this is how it plays. Your job as fundraiser to build that momentum by accepting those early conditions, but being clear about what you're not committing to, because it's directional. How much time do we have, Zach?
15 more minutes.
Perfect. So this is the pattern I wanted to give you. Helpful?
Very, yes.
Okay, nice job. Thank you very much. You can use it on any objection. Guess what? You never get the objection unless you ask for the commitment. You don't get the objections when you say, what would it take to someday have you invest? Because I could just talk about theoretical somedays. But I'll tell you, the dynamic changes when you ask for the commitment. I want to use the rest of the time to just take your questions. I want to circle back to lead investor, because this comes up all the time, and tell you how to deal with lead investor. Lead investor is just them saying, I'm not ready to commit. translate it with your little dictionary, right? And then, well, what is it about having a lead investor that would make you be willing to commit here today? What do you think they're going to say? All I'm trying to do as that investor is get that free option, right? So what are they going to say when you push through it and say, well, why? What is it about that would enable you to commit here today? By the way, you could just say, great, if we have a lead investor at the end, can I count on your commitment here today? That's risky because most rounds don't have them. But that condition will probably fall away with the momentum anyway. But you can push through this level. You can say, what is it about having a lead investor that would make you want to commit? Imagine you're an investor. I'm just going to pick on you. What is it about that lead investor that would make you comfortable with saying yes today? What would you say?
I like their due diligence.
You like their due diligence. So if you had all the due diligence, would you be willing to commit here today?
I'd like to see other people commit first.
Okay, so different reasons. So you'd like to see some momentum in the round. So as long as I raise the full $1 million, can I count on your commitment here today? I would never hold you to your commitment unless there was a great due diligence package and at least $1 million raised. I'm not asking you to write a check. Commitment would really help me right now.
I need to learn more about the business first.
Yeah, what exactly do you need to learn more about?
What's the CEO's background on this kind of business?
I'm the CEO, so I would love to talk through my background with you. Do you have time? So you see what's happening, right? This is very common. I took away the first two. I completely disarmed his first two things instantaneously, and he went to a third. So I'm getting to the issues. My ears. I'm not guessing what they are. Right? I'm just asking for the commitment, and I'm working through those things by saying you'll get diligence. If there's no diligence, I'd never hold you to your commitment. If we don't raise at least the $1 million because you want other people to invest, because you're a follower, right? That's fine. I'll tell you that we won't count on your commitment unless we get to the $1 million, or whatever my low bar number is. They say, no, that doesn't work. It's got to be $2 million. So got it. Never hold you to your commitment unless we get to $2 million. Not sure we'll get there, but understand you're not committed unless we do. Over and over again, right? Now this one is what I call terminal maybe. That's the game you're playing, and this does happen with investors who are just never going to commit. They're going to be terminal maybes because they're just not committers, right? No matter what you do, they're always going to say, well, I need more time. Or when Venus is aligned with Saturn, I can make that decision, right? Some reason that they're going to stall it. And that's okay. Some people are just going to be like that. It's very rare. Most people will get off their objections if you take away the problem. A few people are just literally so afraid to commit that they just never will until it's too late, or they're the last committer in the round. And that's not a bad strategy for them, but it's not that common. More people, if you use these techniques, will respond to them than you might imagine. Any questions out there?
Got several questions
Good.
from online.
Participation, excellent.
Yes. First question is, when you have these conversations where you've got the objections, you get the commitments, how do you keep track, or are there tools and techniques to keep track of who said what?
Yeah.
So that when you come back for those follow-on meetings, it's a crisp exchange.
Really important to, if you're going to be a good communicator, remember this stuff, right? Aaron came back to me like 6 months later and said, I'm oversubscribed, and I remember you said this and that. I find last conversation, status, condition 1, condition 2, condition 3, and so on, are just good notes, right? I mean, this doesn't have to be some crazy CRM. But do keep it. When you get that commitment, by the way, it's good to not only note it in there, but to follow up with an email. One more reflective listening by email. Thanks for the chat today. Thanks for committing $1 million under the 2 conditions that we figure out pricing, and whatever the other one is, we have a great board of directors. I understood that that's a commitment as long as we do those 2 things, so I'll keep you posted on them. Please let me know if I have anything wrong here. That's more obvious to us that we should send that email. After commitment, 2 good questions to ask, by the way. So someone just said, yeah, I'm in. What's one good question to ask that investor when they're committed?
Do they know anyone else?
Anybody you like to co-invest with that you might want to introduce us to? I mean, that would really help us. Don't forget to ask that, because that's the best referral you can get. Second question you ask them: can I tell people that you're committed? If they're committed, they'll almost always say yes, even though it's a soft commitment. And this is part of this question. I want to circle back to it because you should put the answers to those two questions. Mark Cuban, 100% of the time, will say, no, don't use my name. I don't want people investing because I'm in. Please don't use my name. 95% of investors say, sure, why not? I want to do this deal. I want to help you, right? And then when you go and you talk to other people, you say, David's in. Boy, that better be true. So you better have had a clear conversation, or else now you're a liar in the community. That's that thing I'm warning you about. Don't ever leave a conversation without that clarity. Reflective listening is your friend there. But track the answers in there. And then when you go to talk to somebody else, people ask the natural next question, which is, do I need to disclose all the conditions that person has on their commitment? No. They're in. We're still figuring out some details like pricing. We don't know that yet, but they're in. They're committed. Just like you're committed to get married even though you don't know where the wedding is. Totally normal. So you're able to say, yes, they're in. We have some things to work through like pricing because I'm early on that. So same story. That's truthful. What other questions you got out there?
All right, next one's around other objections around the problem or the business model or things specific to the business. How do you suggest handling those objections in the process?
So there's a class of questions where they're just not comfortable committing yet. And so you need to spend more time with them on those topics. Right? Like I need the CEO's background is one we heard here. Well, let's have a meeting and talk about the CEO's. So the natural next step is just deal with that. Dig into the business model. Again, you find out what's real by asking for the commitment. Because it's easy for me to just give you homework forever. I'm sure some of you have had this happen to you. I'm really interested, but I need a pro forma, view of the next 5 years. Busy work. You don't have any idea what the next 5 years are going to look like, and neither do they, right? And so they're just seeing what you do. They're just putting you through your paces, right? You'll get those forever if you don't ask for a commitment. And once you ask for a commitment, then you'll get the things that really matter, right? Versus just the busy work. I got to answer your question, so I deal with it. So when they're asking about business model or the product, like just spend more time on those things with them. But if you found that out because you asked for the commitment, that's good. You know it's real. Versus them just saying, well, I'd like to play with the product some more, which you don't know how real that is. What else you got?
All right, next question.
If there's any here, throw them out too as well. So,
when working with investors and trying to get a commitment, what if they push back and say, I'll write a check when so-and-so writes a check? Yeah, I hear they're committed, but I want the check in the bank. Why isn't the check there? And when that's there, I'm in.
Well, this is back to, I don't think what you want is a check. I think what you want is a commitment. And that commitment helps you build momentum. The amount of money you're going to raise is variable, right? X. So, I mean, I'm willing to write you 100K, but only if that person does. And so I go to that person, and then, now we're closing on 200K, and now we have to set a price, like a cap or something. But if I'm early in my fundraise, I mean, maybe I'm desperate for the money and I need it today. Hopefully not. I'd rather use it as momentum, and I'd rather get that 200K to be $1 million. And let's find out what Y is. X is the amount that you think you're raising. Y is the demand from the market. You want X to start lower than Y. If it starts higher than Y, you're screwed. That round probably is never going to close. If you're asking for more than there is in the market for you, you probably get nothing. Remember, that's really counterintuitive, right? If I over-ask, people don't feel confident about investing because you didn't get to your goal, right? So I would use it as building momentum. I'm not in a hurry to close on that money unless I have to be, and then that's a different situation. And I want to leverage that into the next commitments. And as I get more and more, I have more and more pricing leverage, right? 7 million instead of 3 million in the example you saw here. So I want to defer that price setting until the end. If people push me early, I'll commit that their condition is that the price is that low, but that I'm not committing back that I will take their money at that low price. So use it to build momentum is sort of what I'm getting after here.
Next question's around materials you give investors. Should you include the price and what you're raising in decks? And does anybody look at fantasy.xls?
Do not include the price in the deck. I mean, you can include the amount of money that you're raising, but again, it should be the low end of confidence. If you feel like there's no way that you're going to raise less than 700K because you just feel it, then that's a number that goes in the deck. Until you have $1 million, then $1 million goes in the deck. Until you have $1.5 million, then $1.5 million goes in the deck. That's a variable. It's not a fixed number. The only reason to fix it is because you fix the price, which I'm telling you to do at the end. Because now I can't only raise this much because that's too much dilution. But with momentum, people are flexible on price, as long as you didn't commit to it early on. That's the example I was trying to show you. Does that make sense?
Next question is, when you're using your judo technique, is there a way to also create the fear of missing out as you're leveraging that technique?
Sorry, I want to go back to the previous one, fantasy.xls, I forgot to answer. Do you ever share your spreadsheet? Sure, if they ask for it. I mean, are you going to share a 300-page roadmap document that they didn't ask for? I can't invest yet because I don't have your spreadsheet that shows me how you're planning on hiring. Okay, here it is. Oh, here's also our 300-page roadmap that you didn't ask for. Oh man, that thing is full of red flags. I'm sure of it. That's your mouth creating an issue. You're giving them a document they didn't ask for. So be careful with that. Sorry, what was that next question? I forgot it.
Creating a sense of the fear of missing out as you're using your
FOMO.
judo technique.
Yeah. FOMO. Okay. So the reason I set up this role play with you have nobody committed is because I don't want you to use the FOMO thing. You can start to use it as you start to get some commitment. So you have the same conversation, you know, we're raising 750, but we have 500K committed. That's going to create some FOMO because you have momentum. You're going to fail at creating FOMO when you have no momentum. Maybe there's some rookie investor who's never seen that move before, but you know, most people are like, yeah, it's your FOMO thing, right? So fear of missing out. You know, what you really want to do is say, I've got so much interest. And investors are going to say, great, who are you talking to? What's your next move, if it's not true? Don't overposition to the point where you feel like you're lying. Hey, you know, there's only 300K left in the round, or we're closing it next Tuesday. And the next Wednesday, they're like, so what's going on? We're still working on the round. Like, false FOMO just hurts you. But when you have momentum, share that momentum, right? We have 2/3 of it committed already. Seems like there's a lot of interest. Great, who's committed? I can tell you that. I don't have to position, I can actually tell you that. So use FOMO when you have it, don't use FOMO when you're making it up. That makes sense?
So don't lie.
Don't lie. And you know, the fuzzy line, I mean, lying is there's a couple things that'll kill you, right? Lying and being stupid. So you're not stupid, you're here, you're all really smart people. I don't know about the people watching, but you know, we don't have that problem. But we do have you feel like you're lying, and I want to talk about that fuzzy line because we all live it all the time. We position, right? We're really close to, you know, this customer contract, or you know, you're painting the best possible picture of yourself. And I think there's a line there that's okay, but it crosses over into lying, which is actually part of our code of conduct at Techstars. Hopefully you've seen it. You can Google it if you haven't and sign it. But it, you know, I mean, lying is just a quick way to be done. I mean, you get, you know, everybody knows it's too close to community. Investors are going to talk to each other. Just don't do that. You know, somebody asks you a direct question, like, just be honest. I think that's really important.
One more. How do you handle conditions to investment involving board seats? And how do you think about assembling your board?
So I'll invest $1 million, but only if I can get a board seat. This is actually quite common. I think that's what they mean. So again, what's the pattern? I'm not sure I want this person on the board, is where the question's coming from. So my answer to that would be, got it, if I'm hearing you right, you're in for $1 million, but it's conditioned upon you having a board seat with the company. That's exciting to us. We're glad that you want to be super active. I don't know what the board's going to look like or what the conditions of the other investors are going to look like. So while I can't commit to it, I certainly understand that your commitment is conditioned upon that board seat. And if you don't get it, I would never hold you to your commitment. Does that work for you? It's the same pattern, guys, right? It's the same pattern over and over again. You just have to practice it. Now, if you want them on the board, you might say, great, I commit to give you the board seat. You could do that. Recognize that you've done that. And if someone else comes along that is even better, you may not have room or you may have too many people. Best to handle these things at the end, especially where you're not super excited about it. Any questions here? Just have a couple minutes, I think. Okay. Yes.
Earlier you were like, when there was only one concern, you're like, okay, that's BS, you know, there's more. Like, is there a general rule for when you're leaving a conversation like this? Like, if you haven't found a certain amount of concerns, you're like a little bit worried that you actually haven't gotten a real commitment?
Yes, but then just play back. So you're in for $1 million. There are no conditions to the commitment you're making here. I'm going to send you paperwork when we're ready. Do I have that right? Like, don't be afraid to just circle back, do it again with an email, right? I might be a little skeptical. I have seen it. I've seen people walk up in demo day and say, I'm in for $300K, just send me the docs. And then they do it. I think it's worth coming back to price in that scenario and saying, got it, so you don't care what the price is? Like, just kind of deal with the thing, right? You know it's there. And they said, no, I don't care what the price is. I mean, you know, look, if it's over 30, I might be out. Oh, got it. That's helpful, right? My guess is it'll be under 30, right? You can sort of take that condition and recognize there probably is a limit, even if they haven't said it. And just say, I just want to be sure there's no other reason why you wouldn't ultimately write that check when we're ready. Just because I want to know how solid that is. Like, that's an okay thing to come back to and ask about. All right. I think we're pretty much at time. Am I right? Yeah, we'll wrap it. Thank you for your time and attention. I don't know what you have planned.